Welcome to Lance Riggins' Money Mindset, the show where wealth is built with strategy, freedom is created with intention, and legacy starts with the decisions you make today. Hosted by Lance Riggin, this podcast dives into real conversations about investing, entrepreneurship, real estate, mindset, and building a life on your terms. If you're ready to think bigger, move smarter, and take control of your financial future, then you're in the right place. This is Lance Riggins' Money Mindset. Let's get into it.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to do an analysis and full underwriting on a park that was sent to me recently. It's in San Angelo. I'm going to walk you through the process of the first through the final steps that I take when I'm analyzing an RV park. I haven't done this one yet. I looked at it, kind of gave it a quick overview and felt that it was good for this recording. So some of the information we're going to find out in real time. But let me do a screen share so that I can get into it and show you guys what I am seeing. Okay. Okay, here we go. Gotta move my toolbar. Okay, I want to show you guys where this lead actually came from. So let me get into my RV park. Okay, so this came from Blaine. So this is an agent out of Arizona. Lance made contact with him. He's sending us on market deals, but he knows what we're looking for. He has our buy box. And because he's an agent, he understands, more than a traditional bird dog would. He does know that we're looking for primarily seller finance deals or partial seller finance deals just for a financing structure. I've been on the call with him a couple times. I don't believe he's in the group, but he has done creative in the past. So he understands, what I'm saying when I'm talking to him. And that's, going to be a variable depending on the bird dogs you're talking to. So it's important to vet your bird dogs if you have them sending you deals. Make sure that they understand really what you're looking for. So when they continue to send you deals, it is better quality. So you're not wasting a lot of time. So I told him 38 minutes ago that I was going to check this now. He sent this to me 9 days ago. We do get a little backed up with underwriting. So anyways, I like Blaine. He's a nice guy. So he sent me the Crexy listing. I had a hard time opening it up. It's a blank. So I just Googled the listing. So here we go. It's been on the market about 6 months, a $4 million park. It is slightly outside of our purchase buy box, but you won't know until you underwrite truly what your offer can be. So for us, there's a little bit of elasticity when I look at parks. I will look at parks that maybe are priced a little bit outside my buy box on the assumption that it may be closer to my purchase price after I've done my own underwriting, because we're never going to go off of what the pro forma or the agent is listing it at. You have to do your own due diligence and make sure that you are finding any gaps that they didn't fill in or that the owner just, neglected throughout time. So for me personally, anytime I do underwriting on a park, there's a few things that I check first. I check the photos. This one does not have that many photos. I believe it has 3. At a glance, it's a decent looking park. It doesn't look like a luxury resort, doesn't look run down with a lot of trashy tenants. So it does look like long terms, but we will see. And it's got a good location based on, what the agents are saying. I think that's it. They only have 3 photos. So one of the first things that I'm going to do is go to Google Earth. I like Google Earth because it has satellite photos of the park that are not going to be doctored up by an agent. So let me make sure that my screen, okay. I just want to make sure that as I share different tabs that it's showing that to you too. So I'm going to go to Google Earth. Hopefully I spelled correctly. Okay. If you haven't been on Google Earth, it's a pretty cool map. It gives you a couple different views. I'm just going to copy paste the address into it. Guess I was looking at something in Hawaii last time. Okay, so this is an aerial photo. It looks like this one was from all the way back in 2014. Google Earth updates their photos in certain areas somewhat regularly. What I like about it is you can actually see a time lapse if it's a major metro area. I've done it a couple of times. You're going to have to give me a second while I peek through. Show historical imagery. Okay, so you're going to want to go to this because I don't care what the park looked like 12 years ago per se. I want to see what it looks like today or as most recent as possible. So it's got this bar up at the top, and I can go all the way up to 2025. So this is what the park should look like in the last year. From an aerial view, it's a clean looking park. Looks like they have a good layout. Looks like there could be some room to expand. I think it even said something about that on the listing. We'll go back in a minute, but at a first glance, it's kind of like, peeking at somebody's dirty laundry when you look at the map because they haven't, they can't doctor the Google images. So if they have trash anywhere or if tenants have tons of cars, it's easy to see that. You can also do like a street view instead of an aerial view. You can drop your little person, you just pull him and drop him. And I always like to see what it looks like at the entrance of the park. I always want to see, sometimes he drops you backwards. So you're going to have to spin around. And sometimes I'll use the arrows to go to the left or the right. I don't spend a lot of time on here. I just want to get an idea of what it would look like if I actually pulled up to this park with my travel trailer, if it's somewhere that I personally would want to stay. So I'm guessing that some of these are long-term tenants. Fairly clean, doesn't have a lot of trash. Somebody's working on their vehicle, but that happens. Looks like they might have, okay, that's a cover. So we'll dig in and see if they have, any facilities, if they have any restrooms, if they have any laundry, but looks like they take decent care. Landscaping is done. It's nice that nothing's overgrown. Just kind of give it a full pass over one time. It is always this slow. There's no way to make it quicker. I just don't know. I don't know what to say, but usually doesn't take long unless you have a park that's 3 miles long. So, okay. Yeah, definitely some long-term tenants. They have made themselves at home with all their little structures and awnings. And that can be totally fine. There are lenders who will only lend on transient parks and only lend on long-term stays, and they are typically not the same lenders. So it's just good to know what that ratio is. So, okay. So I'm happy enough with that. I like how it looks. I don't know. Oh, there I am. Okay. Fine with that. Okay. So I like how it looks. I'm going to leave Google Earth. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to just Google once again. And if you have any websites that you like using, that's fine. I rely on Google a lot. So I'm going to look up San Angelo population. Oh, well, thankfully Google can read through my typing. So, okay. So Lance and I have a buy box of about 100,000 people. This one's very close. I like that. Just so that you know where San Angelo is, it's kind of central Texas. Sometimes I'll go to the map and just get a visual on it. In Texas, it's known as the Triangle: Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. So those are really hot places. Midland, I have a park there. It's oil country there. You have El Paso down here. San Angelo is a hub in and of its own, but it's definitely not in the Triangle. So that's all right. It's got a good population. So the next thing I'm going to look at is San Angelo crime rate. Texas has a lot of, oh, I'm going to have to do a Google search on this. There are a couple of, I like this one, Crime Grade. I don't always remember the names of it, but a quick Google search. Most of these websites have a decent current idea of what the crime rate is. Texas has high crime in general. It's a very large state, large populations, but utilizing maps like this is going to give you a good idea if you're looking to buy a park. And every city has it, right? Every city has good areas, bad areas, but you want to make sure that your park is in an area where you're not going to be, in a war zone. So I'm going to go back to the map real quick, and I'm going to just kind of check my location versus where it is on the crime map. So I think you can do, oops, I gotta move this again. I think you can do an address. Yeah, you can do an exact address. Do I still have it? Boom, still got it in there. Is this gonna do it? Nope. Okay, that's bringing me to something else. So what I typically do is just get an idea of the area. So, oops, this screen is going to be, let me bring it to the bottom of my screen. There we go. Okay. So for me, I just look at landmarks. It's right between these two lakes. That's a pretty easy identifier on the map. I'm going to go over here and just zoom in. The airport's red. I don't know why that is. My assumption would be just all the security that's at the airport and TSA, because I think that we all know that airports are not technically high crime rates, but it's probably affecting everything outside of it. I will look into that later because we know that the park is over in this area. The good news is it is close proximity to the airport, which means that there can be people that work at the airport. It's still close to town, so for a commute, they're going to be able to pop into town, and then it's green all the way around. So I'll do a little bit more on that, but just give you a couple of pointers. Those are some of the things that I check when I'm first going to underwrite a park. You can do, Texas has a website. I will upload it when I upload this into the file. And it's like a commerce website for Texas. And I found it when we first moved here, and I check it regularly, and it talks about, or it has listings of all of the businesses that are projected to move to Texas. It has the size of the company, how many jobs they're going to bring, sometimes how large the facility that they're going to build is. I would assume that some of the other states that you're looking in have them, but since we're focused on Texas, that's what we're going to look at. So, okie dokie. Okay, and I have a printout that I'm also gonna upload into the file. That's just kind of helping me stay on track because I get nervous when I'm on camera. So if I'm looking down, it's because I'm reading my map. So that's market one layer. So we have population, demand drivers, any sort of red flags, which I'll go into real quick. So tiny isolated towns with no growth, high crime areas, flood prone locations. So if you're looking in an area where they have frequent hurricanes along the coastline of Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, those are something that you're going to want to look at and make sure it's going to make your insurance a lot higher. And that's the main factor, is flood insurance is not cheap. So once you have your baseline for the market layer one, if it passes that, then you go to step two. So Lance and I have broken it down into 3 layers. So that's why I always just go to Google Earth first, check the crime, check the population. I typically look into population growth too. That was one thing that I didn't do, but I had done prior to this Zoom, and San Angelo is actually on like a stagnant growth, which isn't great. I think it was 0.4. We typically want to look for 0.7 in a growing market, but it is Texas. We know that it's growing. So there can be, once again, a little bit of elasticity. so we're going to continue to move on. Just wanted to put that out there. So layer two is the asset viability. Is this a value add opportunity or is a money pit waiting to happen? So let's get into the OM real quick. Okay, so pleased to present the exclusive offering, a 70-site RV community located in San Angelo, Texas, positioned on almost 11 acres, being offered at $4 million, with a compelling 8.56 cap rate. Based on my Google Earth view, that is not an 8.5 cap rate park. 8% is pretty nice. I've seen parks listed as far down as 5%, which is bonkers. So we are looking for parks that are between an 8 and a 10 cap. I would probably put this one, maybe at a 10 or 11 just at first glance. We will end up seeing, I don't pay a lot of mind to the cap rate. It's based on what the cash on cash return would be if you bought the park for all cash, and most of us are not doing that. So but it's a good indicator of how they have the park price. So strategic location near Lake Nasworthy, San Antonio market, year-round demand for both lifestyle renters and local workforce. We just verified that on Google. So I'm going to go to the OM because they're going to have a lot more info in there. Okay. Let me log in. I'm on Lance's computer, so let me see if I have anything saved in here. My goodness. Okay, well, you guys are gonna have to bear with me for a minute. He has a Zoom set up on his computer, but I log into everything from mine, so I tried to get a couple things set up ahead of time. Okay, that was not too painful. Okay, here we go. So the OM is going to give you a pretty good, the offering memorandum. It's called an OM. You'll see it when you're talking with agents. You can use that acronym instead of saying offering memorandum each time. It's going to have like a high level overview of the park. So this is what they're using for advertising. That's going to typically have some sort of P&L on it. Most likely it'll have a pro forma. It'll give you all the information that we just looked up, demographics, household income, all of that. I will still typically do my own research because that's part of my own due diligence, right? I don't want to take what the broker's saying. I know that they're educated in their area, but they also really want to sell this park. So I want to make sure that I'm always verifying that information for myself. So they have the best photo that they took for the park. Not bad, but definitely more of a long-term looking park. These are the other photos that they gave us. So it gives you a table of contents just like normal. It's going to tell you where you can find what. I typically zip straight to the financial, but it is good to go through it in full. I'm just kind of a read the back of the book type of girl. So I want to see the numbers first before I even start to dig into anything else. So you can scroll through, see the same exact thing that we saw online. This is the verbiage that they had on the listing. They have the list price, how many sites, acreage, once again, price per pad. And the price per pad is important because you can use that when you're comping it against other parks. I don't typically comp against other parks. You can if you think that it's overpriced and you really want it. But for us, it's cash flow, right? I want to make sure that the park is performing and giving me a set amount of income per month, and different parks are gonna be different amounts per square per pad based on how many pads there are, where the location is, just like anything, right? Similar to comping a house, you're just doing it on a much larger scale with a different asset class. So we already saw this on the website. Oops, apologies. My kiddo texts me, she's gonna bring me coffee. I told her I was doing a recorded Zoom, so I was like, don't text me. Let me actually turn that off. Sorry. Just coffee, anything. Okay. So you get some more photos in here, which is nice because they only had 3 on Craigslist's website, and you can look anywhere. You can be looking at rvparkstore.com. You can be talking directly to the seller. If you are talking directly to the seller, use an OM as your guide on what to collect from the seller. You're going to want to get real-time photos. You're going to want to get financials. You're going to want to get information about the surrounding area directly from the owner. Once again, you're going to want to double check all of these things that they're giving you, but for a lot of sellers, you're going to get the best info directly from the horse's mouth. So you want to, figure out what they like about the park and the area or what upgrades they would want to do. So here we go. Here's the good stuff. Here's the financial overview. So this is where they really tell you how and why the park is worth, $4 million. So we have a total annualized rent revenue. If I'm sure most of you have seen these, but if you haven't, I'm just going to go through it step by step real quick. They're going to have total annualized revenue. Current is 529,200. They have a pro forma. The assumptions are total rental income. RVs are all tenant-owned homes, which is great. We have kind of a rule where we don't want a majority of park-owned homes or park-owned RVs. We do come across it. Most parks don't own any RVs or tenant-owned park-owned homes, but you'll find that sometimes. Refer it against your buy box if you're okay with that. Just remember, anything that you own, you have to fix. So you may collect more in revenue on that, RV or that tiny home or manufactured home on the space, but you're also going to have to pay for every single repair. So it ends up still typically being a loss to the park, depending on the age of the unit. So a small amount, 2 or 3 or 4, can be worth it. You can always get rid of those down the road. But if you're looking at, 70 units and you own 20 of them, that's really going to take a chunk out for maintenance and repairs. So weigh it against your buy box, but just know that ahead of time. Vacancy is 5%. That's pretty aggressive. Typically when you're doing the underwriting, and we can go back to it, but a stabilized RV park is typically underwritten by a bank at 70%. I believe mobile home parks are 80%. So when you're doing your underwriting, you're always going to be, at whatever the park is now. If they're at 50%, then you have a 50% vacancy. If they're already at 70%, then you're showing a 30% vacancy, and you're going to have to show how you can increase that. It is incredibly risky to underwrite for, higher than 85, 90%. If the park's already performing at that, and there are some parks that do that, that's great. You have to figure out another way to, increase value to the park. If you buy a park that is just, tip-top shape, where are you going to add value? You're going to have a huge debt service, and you're not really going to be able to add anything. There's no meat on the bone. But you always want to be very conservative in your underwriting for a couple of reasons. The bank is going to scrutinize everything. And even if you do seller finance, you have to be very conservative on your projections, because if you're right out the gate, I'm going to, increase, occupancy by, 15, 20% the first year, that's very aggressive, most likely unrealistic. Typically, and you'll see shortly when we get into the underwriting, I calculate for a 5% loss in year one. A lot of times when you switch management and you buy a new park, whether it was mismanaged, and you're kicking out everybody that's behind on rents, or people that are just really bad, for the park, for whatever reason, be it drugs or, how their, house looks with garbage overflowing or loose dogs or whatever makes them a problem tenant. A lot of times you'll have a loss before you pick back up. Sometimes it's that, tenants in the park really love the sellers, and they're mad that you're buying it, even though you're a great person. So account for a 5% loss. And then you can, after that year two, you can start adding growth because it's going to take you close to 12 months to gain your footing. And if you do it sooner, that's great. Then you're beating your underwriting. And if you, use the whole 12 months, then you're in line and you're just still staying very conservative. So, I kind of went off on a tangent. So we have their effective gross income, we have their real estate taxes, insurance, utilities, repairs and maintenance, management expenses, total expenses, expense ratio. So this is going to be fun. We're going to pick this apart in a minute, but just at a first glance, because that's what we're looking at, right? When we start going into the underwriting, there's a couple of red flags that I see right off the bat. Well, the first one, and it's for the OM, so they've condensed everything, right? I'm not seeing what electric is. I'm not seeing what water is. I'm not seeing what gas or trash is. They've lumped it in, and that's fine enough for a napkin analysis. You're going to want, T12s or and P&L statements. A P&L is a profit and loss. A T12 is the trailing 12. It's the last 12 months of their rent roll, whether it's transient or long term. You want to see who's there, how often. But a standard expense ratio for a park should be between 40 and 60. This one's all the way down to 33. So one of two things, they're fibbing, or there's a lot of deferred maintenance. And I know that on this one, it appears that, all of the RVs are tenant owned, so there's no maintenance. They may potentially, we'll find out if they're billing electric back, because for over $500,000 in revenue and the utilities, being about 73,000, that seems a little low. So, we'll get into that in just a second. The other thing, management expenses, $1,500 a month. For 18,000 for the year, seems like a great deal. I would be leery of that. Like I said, once we start digging into the numbers, we'll see. But that is not really a livable wage. So are they managing part-time? What else are they doing? Are they just collecting rent checks? Are they doing, the books? Are they mowing the property? I doubt it for this. So there's going to be other expenses probably in the repairs and maintenance to take care of that. $300 a year per lot. Still seems pretty low. We typically will underwrite about 40,000 for management for the year. A property manager, if you can find a property manager, we have one, but in general, if you can find an on-site property manager, what we have is an operations manager who manages the on-site manager. They're going to want, 8% roughly, right? I mean, that's standard for most rental companies. Once you're doing very large assets, you can probably get them down to 6%. But once again, you're going to want to underwrite on the conservative side for a good manager. So this is great, but it definitely skews the numbers. I don't think that this is accurate. So, okay. They do have a rent roll. That's lovely. Everybody's at 700. So I wonder if that includes utilities. That seems fairly high for a month of rent based on what I've seen. I usually see anywhere from, 4 to 550, 575 just for a pad rent. And remember, these RVs are all owned by the people living in them. So they're taking care of the expenses. So they're paying $700 a month for their space rent. That's not cheap. I haven't done the underwriting, but you're probably at 800 or 900 for a 1-bedroom in town plus your utilities. So I always do like to check that as well. Just see why people would want to stay at my park instead of, having their own apartment. So, okay. Just going to finish scrolling through here, just double checking everything. So I saw that population for San Angelo was right about 100,000. We have median household income, home ownership rate, property value. Just want to make sure it's not a really poor area. This is not a bad median household income. This is probably just above poverty level, to be honest. In today's day and age, I feel like you need to be making, between 80 and 100, but Texas doesn't do too bad. Mississippi's still really poor in certain areas. I don't even look there. I know our buy box says Sun Belt, but Mississippi's still a really poor state. They do have some pipelines coming to them. That's something else. Yeah. Economic drivers. So this is what I was talking about. You're going to want to make sure, like, what's the pull to the area? You know, why is somebody going to come and stay at this park? It could be a really great, park. But if it's not destination, if it's in the middle of nowhere, you have to figure out for the longevity of the park, why is somebody going to be there? Is it some 5-year oil pipeline? Are you going to be able to have, the park do really well for 5 years and then you want to sell it? But now that the pipeline's completed, now you have to explain to the end buyer, what their upside is if they buy your park. Or if you decide to hold it, what does it look like after that year 5 when the oil workers leave and now you still have your debt on the property, which you've paid down minimally because you're only in year 5 on a really, high loan, $1-2 million loan, depending on the size of the park and the interest rate. So what is going to be the longevity of the financial opportunity for the park? So they go over primary industries, top employers, recent developments. Doesn't look like there's any pipelines going over here. Oil field services and energy support. And you can find pipeline is pretty big for us right now. There's a lot of natural pipelines going in the south. You can Google it and find out, if you want to zero in near some of those projects. There's some AI. Lance knows the name of them, but there's those AI buildings, data centers, which I won't get off on my hippie rant about how sad that is that they're wiping out, these large areas of land, but they are good for revenue. So, and then the agent's info down here. This will be good for today's underwriting, but you are going to want to, go through this, see if it fits your buy box, see if it's something that you're interested in, and then call the agent. Maybe what we'll do today, later today, is call on this park. None of you will have had a chance to watch this video yet, but I'll explain to you when we're on today's call. I'm going to call one of these guys and see if I can get some more info about this park. Probably going to call Arthur or Chad. They're probably going to have the most info about this. The VP may, but it's going to be one of these guys that has the info on the park. So, okay. So, I am going to do a split screen while I do my underwriting because for me, I don't like switching back and forth. So let me see if I can I got my calculator right here open. This is the one that is in the Google Drive for everybody. Oh, I already did. I already opened it, made a copy. Please don't overwrite the file that's in there. Just download your own copy. And that's what I do. I just copy paste. I do a new Excel sheet for every single part that I'm working on, and then I save it. And then I just go back to my master file that is blank and just fill it in. So let me see if I can. You're going to have to bear with me while I shrink all my windows. Okay. So oh, okay. It doesn't look like it is showing both windows. Let me see. Let me see if I can get it to do a split screen. Yes. Okay. No? There we go. Okay. Took it a minute. Perfect. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is give this a new name so that when it's in my drive or on my computer, I can find it. What is the name of this park? Apologies, I'm going to be going back and forth a couple times. So bear with me. Huling RV Park. RV Park. I'm going to put the city and state in there. That's just for me. You can bookmark it however you want to. Okay. It's, yeah, I don't need it in every year. It's going to bother me. So, San Angelo. And this is for you. You'll eventually need to send this to an underwriter if you're doing bank financing. If not, just keep it for you. So fill it out as detailed as you'd like it. It is always good rule of thumb to, give yourself as much information as you have to. So we have a total of 70 sites, I believe, on this park. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so that I can see it in full. Yep, 63 out of 70. So this is going to give you the space per site once I change the price. So I am going to underwrite it in the beginning at their asking price. It's just how I do it. After I figure out all the numbers, I'll start to go down from there as we work down in the underwriting calculator. So I'm not going to mess with my down payment or acquisition costs or any of that yet. I'm not going to mess with my financing for seller, carrier, bank, traditional. I'll go back to that. I'll tell you why. So I need to go to revenue and operating expenses. I need to put in the purchase price of the park, and I need to put in what it's making and what it's costing to run it right out the gate. You can see here I already have some formulas in here. Some of these are aggressive. Sorry, I'm just looking at my park blueprint and I did okay. So I kind of glazed over the last two layers, but we did them. I just wasn't verbalizing. So let me just back up real quick. So the first one was market thesis. We did that. The second one was asset viability. Is there room for expansion? Utility billing not implemented. I didn't see that on the OM. I'm going to ask the agents about that today. Is there any infrastructure that we can do? Management, we did touch on that real quick. And then the last one is the numbers. And that's where we are right now. We're trying to input all the numbers so that we can even see. Okay. That's why I have my little to-do list. Okay. So it's my calculator. So a true underwriting is where you are actually underwriting the park at what it would look like from a revenue standpoint if it was 100% all the time, year round. That's just how underwriting is done. And then down here, you put in what the vacancy is, and it will bring it across, and then you can change the vacancy to less the first year, and then you can do an uptick throughout it. So if we have 70 sites and they are charging $700 a month, that's $49,000 a month. That's 588,000 for the full year. And they have a pro forma because you're never going to be at 100. It's just, I don't know why underwriting works that way. It's how I was taught, and that's the proper way to do it. So we'll get down there in a minute. So this is all looped together because it's just RV sites. Some parks will have cabin or lodging. Some will have store revenue or a general store, propane, laundry. I didn't see any of that at this park. So that's a value add. You could definitely put in a laundry facility. You could put in a little store. It's just convenient for your tenants, right? Not every RV has a washer and dryer in it. Most of them don't. Most of these people are probably driving up the road. This park would, and that's another question for the agent, but this park would probably do well with a laundry facility on site so that these tenants didn't have to drive, 2 miles up the road. That's all income that you could be capturing. You could have just a little, store with some vending machines in it. You'd be surprised how much, you can make maybe a couple $100 a month. I mean, that's $2,400 in a year. And it all adds up. There's all these little levers that you can pull to make the park more profitable. Excuse me. So we don't have any of that on this park that we're seeing. So I'm not going to enter it. I didn't see anything about rubs on here. Rubs, RUBS. It is, what is it? It's Recovery Utility Billing System, I think. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while. I just call it rubs for so long. But it's basically where, obviously, if this park has multiple units on one meter, you're going to have to go and either sub-meter each of them individually or do some sort of of uh, like a normalization throughout everybody that's on that meter, and give them a bill back, whether it's a $45 a month, like, hey, we're charging you during this, or peak season it's going to go up to 60, or whether you are actually able to meter them individually, and get that full amount back. So that's huge, though. Almost any park that you're going to be looking at is going to have most of their expenses. The majority of the expenses are going to utilities. And that's one of the biggest value adds. It can be expensive to implement rubs. It can be tough, getting the tenants to pay more. But you can also get creative with it. One of the things that we did when we bought our park, and it's a mobile home / RV park. So all the mobile home tenants were on their own meter already. So we didn't have to worry about that. But one of our higher expenses was pumping all of the tanks, because there's close to 20 septic tanks on our property. And they should be pumped yearly. The last owner was only pumping them when they overflowed. Blech. And some of them were failing because of that. So when we bought the park, we didn't want to freak the tenants out by increasing rent dramatically. So what we decided to do is implement additions in a couple ways. And I know I'm rabbit trailing, but I have to go off on this. So we had increased their rent by about $75 per pad, because their rents hadn't been increased since prior to COVID, and we bought the park in 23. So there was a 3-year gap where there was no rent increase. So we knew that they could handle it. But additionally, what we did is we charged all of them a $75 a month maintenance fee for the septic pumping. And we had just put it in there as basically, like a maintenance type billing. And that way, although they still saw a $150 increase, some of these people had been having the septic back up into their backyards, and it was really cumbersome for them. So instead of just seeing $150 increase on their bill, what they saw is a $75 increase on their rent. And then they saw a $75 bill for the maintenance of the pump. And then we started pumping all of the units right away, within, the first 6 months of owning the park. And now we do it regularly. We have them checked. So these tenants know that when they're writing these checks, they know that they're not facing the problems that they used to. Now, the new tenants don't know, and that's great. We don't want them ever having to, look back and remember when their raw sewage was going into their backyard. But we really didn't get a lot of resistance on that because of the problem. So what it did for us is it basically, negated the additional costs that it was placing on us to pump all those tanks and put it back, on the tenants. So it made them a little bit more conscientious to not flush vape pens and trash, and other odd things that our pump guy found. So it was a side note, but just so that there are other ways to charge for utilities as well. There is nothing else in here that states any other income, so we're just going to leave it at that. So right now, let me see. I'm going to take what they're making right now, which is 502,740, And I'm going to divide that by what it would be at 100%. So they are right at about 14.5% vacancy. Because it's 70 spots. And this is a numerical value that you're going to plug in, not a percentage. So all I'm doing right now is taking the 588 and I'm going to deduct the 502, 740 for the effective gross income. And I get vacancy credit, 85,260. Like I talked about earlier, we have year one adjustment. We have a natural growth rate that I just plugged in at 3%. That's a pretty standard, widely accepted growth rate. In most areas, I've seen some agents do 2%, but 3% is pretty standard. Like I said, we're going to take away 5% year one right here, because this first column is what the park is currently doing, what it looks like, day one of purchase. And then we have the first 12 months here. And then the second 12 months, month 13 through 24, and so on and so forth. So that's why you see that it will have the growth as it comes in. So let me see this. Nope. Don't mind me. Okay, I'm just playing with it. So, yeah, okay. Just gonna double check. Okay. Then, yep. It's always good to double check your calculator. So, yep, we have the 5% dip year one based on what it's making. And then we have a 10% increase from that. And then it continues to increase 10%. So it's 10% based on the occupancy and the revenue through natural increases. Then we have, so that's the underwriting. Like I said, some parks are going to be able to add more in here, cabin lodging, fill it out as needed. Something like this is just a very simple snapshot. So most of the underwriting that you should be doing should be more in depth than this is, but this will give you a good baseline to start using this calculator. So we got revenue in. So now we're going to go to operating expenses. So once again, standard expense growth rate, 3%. Your rents are increasing by 3%, but why do we increase rents? Because, the world we are living in is getting more and more expensive. So you can expect your utility bills and your trash bill and everything on this planet to increase year over year at a steady rate in theory. I am aggressive with taxes though, because taxes are kind of the variable, right? Some counties are really good at doing a new assessment after sale, and some are not. When we bought our park in Midland, I had gone to the county and checked the mill rate, and the mill rate is basically the math formula that they use to, charge you based on every 100,000 of like purchase price or assessed value. So our Midland park was $4,400 in taxes for the 3 separate parcels total. And when we bought it, because we bought it for 1.5, but the previous owner had only paid $250,000 for it. What we did is we took the mill rate and we times it by the purchase price, and we had an increase where we projected that the taxes were going to go up to $14,000 the next year, which is normal, for a mobile home park with that amount of land. You typically see tax bills, in the 5 digits, 10,000, 20,000, some as high as 50,000, depending on the park that you're at and what state you're in. Texas does have high taxes, typically. And it doesn't really matter if it's rural or not. So anyways, we had budgeted for a $14,000 tax bill. That never happened. Midland County just didn't seem to really care. But what happened is at the end of the year, we had saved that 14,000 in case we got, a shocking tax bill. We were prepared for it. And it ended up, being extra money for our war chest. Instead of saying, oh, I don't think this county's going to do it, or their track record based on the last owner, didn't seem to increase that much. And then now you're at the end of a year with a really large tax bill and you've only calculated for like $4,400. So don't do that. Be aggressive in your tax projections, and then continue to be aggressive in your tax projections, just because that is the one thing that you always want to calculate for. And you definitely don't want that to be the make or break on your underwriting. So we got 20% increase year over year. Okay, so we're going to go to property management. Once again, we want to put the park in exactly how they're giving it to us and then start changing from there. That's how I do it. So they have $18,000. That is not a lot of money. Asset management fee, I will add that in a minute. I'm going to show you why I'm putting it in exactly the way that I am. So we do an asset management fee. I put it on the calculator because when I come back to change this to my property management, which is going to be a $40,000 baseline, that's for the on-site manager. I still don't want to have to manage the manager. That's what my operations lady's going to do. She needs to be paid for her time. So she's going to be paid 3% of revenue. So I will plug that in. Let me see. And just line by line, like I said, this is going to be kind of lighter because they just gave us, 6 or 8 categories. When you're actually looking at the P&Ls, you're going to be transferring over, hopefully, a numerical value on almost every single one of these lines. We also put a couple extra areas in here if there are any expenses that are on the park that you're looking at that haven't been listed here. Make sure and transfer them over. Real quick, before I go silent and transfer some of these numbers, things that you're going to want to look out for is any owner expenses that they're running through the park that don't have to do with the park. Is the park paying for their health insurance? Is the park paying for their life insurance? Is the park paying for their condo in Hawaii? We have seen that before. That's fine. People can run their businesses in whatever gray area they want to, but when you're doing the underwriting, it's incredibly important to make sure that you are looking at what this park would look like if you purchased it. And what the true numbers are, not like, hey, mom and dad are using this, mom and pop are using this as their, lifestyle bank account to fund everything. It is common with mom and pops that you'll see a lot of expenses that are personal, not related to the business running through here. It's your job to pick those out and make sure that you are giving the park a fair shot and also underwriting it correctly. So there are a lot more expenses that can fall into that category, but just wanted to go over that. So I'm going to plug in repairs and maintenance. I will ask the agents if they know what the repairs and maintenance were for this current year that they have on here, and see if I can break down anything. Repairs you can also pull out if it's a one-time repair, right? You're not typically, unless it's a really, a park that hasn't had a lot of the CapEx done and you're anticipating that you're going to have to, I don't know, fix every meter because some of them are failing, or septic tanks, which, that's a full gut job. Nobody wants that park, but repairs are one-offs. So you would add those back in because typically you're not doing the same repairs year after year. So I do want to know what the repair was and how much it costs so that I can get that even split, right? Oh, yeah, they just don't have that much. Okay. Utilities. Almost 74,000. I'm going to put insurance in here. 3,500. That is probably fair for this park. But it will go up when you buy it. Maybe not by much because there's not a pool, you don't have any personal property. Anything that's personal property in Texas is technically, any park-owned homes or park-owned RVs. Texas considers that personal property and not real estate. So you'll have to insure that. But this park doesn't have any of that. You have to insure it anyways, but just so that you know the difference in Texas. And that's it. That's it. So the park's missing a lot. So their projections are really thin. Really thin. Okay. I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you. This is so much fun. I love underwriting. I really do. I love, figuring out why they're dirty little liars and what their park's actually making. So I maybe missed something. Let me go back to it because I have an expense ratio of 22% and they have an expense ratio of 30%. So, real estate taxes. There we go. That's what I missed. That makes sense. We are at 48,195. Okay. Yeah. Mm, that is pretty close. It is close enough for now. 30.33 and 31.9. Yeah. So the owner looks like he's making 28,000 a month. That is awesome. That is not what you are going to be making. So let's go back up. Yeah, they have it. I think they told us. So this does all your cap rates right here. I just added that in there for fun. I think that they said they had it at, 8.56 cap rate. So it's right between these two. So let's go back up to financing. Now, this is going to be based on whatever, well, two things, whatever the park can afford and whatever you can negotiate. So if you're doing seller financing 100%, you're going to plug in, what your down payment is, and you're going to plug in what you've negotiated with the seller. This is going to tell you what you can negotiate. That's the beauty of seller financing. With banks, you're going to be a little bit more hard pressed. For a loan this large, you're probably going to need some bank financing. So whether it's SBA or a bridge loan into longer term financing, that will be a Zoom for another day. That's been a whole new process that we've been learning. But I think just for funsies, we're going to plug that into this because it's more realistic. So let's say that we did, I'm going to go with like a stack method or a Morby method. It is a more difficult structure to explain to the seller, but if you can get them on board, it's pretty, it can be lucrative in the sense that you can get money back at closing so that you have a war chest right out the gate. I know that SBA will allow some seller carry. I think most commercial loans go as high as 65%. I think that includes SBA. So they're wanting you to bring, Delta to the table, whether it's the 35% between 65% financing and 100% financing, or whether you bring 25% to the table because SBA allows a 10%. We do have some connections to lenders who can work a Morby method in with a seller finance. So we'll go through that later. But right now, we're just going to play around with what it would look like: 65% bank financing and a full 35% seller carryback. I'm not going to do any sort of overages like you do with the Morby method. Typically, that's anywhere from 5 to 10% of over leveraging on the property. So when you see the numbers, but I think I'm getting ahead of myself. So, okay. So we have a $4 million park. And like I said, we're going to plug everything in like they're projecting it right now. And then we're going to start getting aggressive and going back. We're going to just look at it, why it won't work at that purchase price. I can already tell you. So if we do a bank, $4 million, 65% is $2.6 million. If only it was 7%. Now, an SBA may be able to get you to 7%. I don't ever want you guys underwriting this right out the gate. I always underwrite at 10%, and I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you a quick little story too. I'll try not to make this a 3-hour Zoom. Um, I will underwrite at 10% just to see what my cash flow is. And then typically I'll back it down to 8% just so that I can see a variable, right? I want to know that if I get, not great terms at 10%, that the park can still survive. And then I also want to see, more realistically, if I can get a good loan that's right about 8 or a little under 8, what my cash flow is going to be. And that way I know, okay, I'm going to make, 3,000 to, maybe 7,000, because on roughly on a $2 million loan, 1 point, and this is 2.6, but 1 point is going to be like $1,700 a month, $1,800 a month. So that's a big difference for those two points in interest. So just try and underwrite at 10%. Once again, be conservative. You're never going to be mad at yourself if you underwrite conservatively and your park performs better and you end up with more money than you projected. But if you do the opposite, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So, okay. So then that means that if we have a $4 million park and the amount borrowed was 2.6 from the bank, that we have a seller carryback of 1.4 million. And what is the interest rate? Well, let's go with 0. Let's see if it's not going to calculate that. I did this the other night. Okay, we're going to go with 2%. Not 200. There we go. Monthly payment, 5.175. I love PACE. I love the idea of 0% finance. And there are times where that structure can work. If you say, hey, I'm going to give you your price, you accept my terms. That's PACE's famous line. We're not dealing with single family homes. We're dealing with some, not all park owners are educated investors, but some are, and they know that they want their money to make money. So, and typically they're so far off on their asking price, it doesn't make sense to say, oh, I'll give you your asking price if you give me 0% interest. It makes more sense to, bring the price down to what's reasonable, and then to, maybe offer them a fair amount of interest. So we're still going to start really low, because we like to not give away more than we have to. Thanks everybody for hanging in there with me. Okay. So, real quick, let me just touch base on a couple of these cells. So amortization. Amortization is what the loan looks like over the course of however many years you decide, based on monthly payments, just like a standard mortgage. So we have 30 years is 360 months. Commercial is typically going to be on a 20 to 25% AM schedule. So I'm going to go through and alter these. I have seen negotiations with sellers, not necessarily banks, although I think some banks are doing 40-year AM schedules now, which is crazy because they're just making a ton of money on interest. But you can negotiate potentially with the seller for a 40 or a 50-year, depending on how much the seller carry is. Now, that makes your payments lower each month, but keep in mind, the longer the amortization schedule is, the more heavy the interest is, and the principal goes down. So you are just really paying heavy interest payments the further you stretch it out. So I'm gonna swap the seller finance. I actually might leave the seller finance on a 30 year, but I'm gonna change this to 25, which would be 300 months at 10%. You can get some long-term financing, like SBA will do long-term bridge loans or 2 years. Sometimes they're interest only. So all of these cells can be a variable once again. I don't want you to think because just what I'm talking about on the Zoom isn't aligning with what your specific deal is. I want you guys to understand that they're all variables. We're just going based on what we want for this, but this calculator should be able to do almost any sort of financing structure that you end up doing for your park. So your debt, once you get a seller carryback and a loan for this $4 million park, is $345,000. And if you go over here, it's going to show it on the calculator, but they currently made $342,000 in profit after all the expenses, which means that you're losing $3,000. You'll see it down here. There we go. Monthly cash flow, negative $280. So this is why it's good to underwrite. It's $4 million park. You're looking at, $500,000 in revenue a year. It looks kind of good at first glance. Even the net operating income, you're like, if it was a 10 cap, it'd be 3.5. Maybe they're not that far off. They're pretty far off. And their expenses aren't right. So we like to buy around a 10 cap. It's just kind of numbers that work in my head. So I'm going to close this window and we're going to start really having some fun. And it'll be a little bit quicker than it has been. I know I've had some stories and kind of gone into each cell kind of in depth, but I just want to make sure that I'm giving you guys the process of how I do it. And I usually zip through these on a daily basis because it's just plug and play, right? Because I know what my numbers are going to be, but I want you guys to see what we're doing. We're not going to go into this today. I can go into this on another week. I'll get your feedback, but investor return structures, if you don't have your own capital and you do have to bring money to the table, these tiers are going to help you figure out what you're paying to your investors because you always pay underlying debt first, and borrowed money is part of that. So whether you have a bank loan, seller financing, and PMLs or PMPs, or whether it's just a PMP and you got a radical seller finance deal, this will help you figure out what you can afford to pay them. So now we're going to go up here and we're going to start adding. First, I'm going to start changing the expenses. Okay. Let me move this back to the top of the screen. Okay. I'll mess with my pricing, with the pricing next. Okay, so, okay, so this is what I think I would do. And you can have fun with this, right? You can do projections, you can get crazy. Let's say we want to add laundry. Let's say we want to add laundry year 2. Let's say that we expect, I had said earlier, maybe $200 a month. Let's say that we're going to put in a building, a little like she shed from Home Depot. We're going to put in the utilities. We're going to buy a few laundry, washer dryer units that are coin fed. And then we're going to make, I don't know, $200 a month on it after utilities. So that's $2,400 a year. So we're going to put that in as an expense that we can keep making. I am going to put a little note here because we don't get to put the laundry in for free. So I am going to say that this will probably be easily a $15,000 CapEx. Sorry, not CapEx, just cost in general. So I have looked at, I've looked at the coin fed washer and dryers. They are $1,500 for a set. You can actually get ones that scan now. Those are more, but you can get coin fed. Cashless is best. I have seen these little boxes that you can actually put at the back of the washer and dryer it's like a PayPal box. So you don't have to do coin fed, but they link to coin fed. And somebody just, scans their card and it allows water to come through in the washing machine. So It's kind of a fix if it's already there, but this park doesn't have it. So it would cost, you'd have to put in a pad, you'd have to put in the building, you would need to put in plumbing and electric, and then put in those, maybe 3 sets of washers and dryers. That would probably be a little tight for 70 people, but it's a sufficient start, right? So you're going to be you're going to be taking a few years for your profit to actually equalize, but it is a value add, and we're just playing with that. So let me see. It's probably going to be year 5 before you start making that money back, unless you find a way. Once again, though, it's a value add. Okay, so that would be the only thing I'd do right now, just because I wanted to play with it with the guys on here. And we're going to have to add that 15,000 into a repair down here. Repair, okay, year 2. I'm going to put it here, because you have to pay for it up front, but you don't have to pay for it yearly. And you can go in, oops. Oh, it's not going to let me. Sorry, one of the quirks. So I want equals. Okay. I don't want this to carry over in the way that I have this calculator set up. It's automatically taking it as a custom expense. So sorry, it's another rabbit trail, but I need you guys to understand how to be able to manipulate this calculator moving forward, because there are going to be times where you have to go into the cell. Change something for a one-time expense. What if you want to add a dog park down the road? You're going to have to find a way to be able to add that to your calculator for that one-time expense. And you don't want it to follow over every year. You're not adding a dog park each year, but this is how you're going to have to mess with it. And if you ever need to change anything in here, Google's very user-friendly on how to get, certain Excel codes if you're having a problem with it. I am not typically a very Excel knowledgeable girl. I've had to use Google to help me quite a few times to get this. I actually had Claude build this one for me. And then I had to go in and play with it and make sure that it was working the way that I wanted it to. So I'm just going to go in here real quick for the following years, because all of these cells interact with one another and they drop down. So if I actually take this out, hey, thank you so much. There's the coffee that I ordered. Sorry, I need to look at this. I think we're good. So we probably only have another 15 minutes of this Zoom, because I'm just showing you guys how to use this, right? Oh, that is agua vida, life water, coffee. Okay. Oh, it's potent. It's good. Okay. So I don't want this to transfer anything over, but this cell still has to have something in it. Otherwise, it's going to throw off the rest of the calculations and you're going to get error signals. So what am I going to do? Well, what I need it to do is I need it to reference a box that doesn't have anything in it right now. So this year 1 box is C93. So I am going to, and let me see this one. Okay. So let me see if this works. If this doesn't work, I'm going to edit this part out. Beautiful. Okay. So all I did is I told these boxes to mimic what is in this box, which is nothing, but it doesn't take the value out, because that cell value is reliant upon everything else in this row. And it's calculating based on all of those. And if it's missing a box, if a box is blank, then it interrupts, then it basically interrupts the signal in Excel, right? And it's like, oh, I can't add line 83 through 97 because there's a blank on line 93. So if that makes sense. So okay, so we got that figured out. We have our one-time expense. It doesn't transfer over. The income transfers over because we paid for it once and now it's going to continue to provide. But I got that in there. So thanks for bearing with me. Now we're going to go back to year one and figure out where the other expenses are going to be. So once again, I have already set the revenue to decrease year one and to grow. Now we're going to go back to actually what I would be paying. So I would be paying, whoops. Okay, I actually have to do it in this one. Sorry. I'd be paying $40,000 a year minimum. I want a really good property manager. I want somebody who's being paid what they feel they're worth. I don't want somebody feeling like they have to steal my coins out of the laundry machine to make ends meet. I want somebody who's going to be providing value, making sure that the park is picked up. I even have the note right here, 40K minimum. My asset management fee. So if I am bringing in 502,740, my 3% fee is going to be $15,082.20. That is 3%. And you can always, I can always update this to just automatically pull 3% of this line. I just have it. So I'm going to skip payroll, wages, and taxes. I like to buy parks that are not heavy hospitality. I don't want to have a restaurant. I don't want to have any of that. I want a park manager and an operator. There are other parks that will fall into that where you have to have payroll adjust accordingly. We're going to leave repairs and maintenance right now because we don't know what the split is for the park. This is just giving us a good idea. I am going to, I'm going to change my insurance to $5,000. I don't want to, 3,600. I'm paying, what am I paying right now? Yeah, I'm probably paying close to 5,000 right now. On the park that I have in Midland. I do have some mobile homes on there, so it is a little bit higher, but I'm still going to underwrite 5,000. I'm going to leave the taxes because at least the taxes are set, right? We know what that is. Advertising and marketing. I'm going to easily put in $1,500. You can run Facebook ads specific to that area. You can boost it for a couple $100 a month. You should be doing advertising on any park. Some parks are already doing advertising. A lot of them aren't. Figure out, what type of marketing you want to do. Facebook is pretty cheap and easy. You can even do, Facebook for free for the most part. You can do all sorts of stuff. So figure out what this park needs. Seems to be more of a long-term park. It's not destination. So I don't need a lot of money for marketing on this park. Just enough to get out there and say, hey, this park is available. Come stay here. Software and reservation apps. So this is something that I will be using no matter what, right? I think Stay List is about $6,000 a year. That's what I am going to plug in right now. I'm still learning Stay List. I think that it may have some other fees, so I'll have to get some clarity on that. But make sure that you're dialed in on whatever app you're going to use, what the cost is for monthly, and then if there's any other charges that they're going to be giving you. I have seen usually between $6,000 and $8,000 a year for software and apps. And you want good software, right? You want it to be really easy for these people to pay. You don't want them having to go get a money order because you want to be a cashless park. You don't want them, having to send in a check or try and Zelle you or Cash App you. You want them to be able to go to an online portal, pay with their debit card, credit card, automatic withdrawal, whatever it is, and make it really easy. So there are going to be fees associated with that, but it's a lot easier to get your money. Credit card payments and fees. This should definitely be calculated for. I know typically is 3%. We don't know what the spread is on this. Let me see if they're bringing in 502,000 a year. I would say that easily it's safe to assume because you want to do projections, right? I don't know what they are. Yeah, a little bit of it is guessing, but I want to try and get as close to a realistic scenario as I can. So if they're paying with a debit card through the app, there's a charge for that. Every when Lance and I had our granite store in Oregon, we maybe got a break on a debit card because it was cash and it wasn't credit. That the credit card companies will rake you over the coals, they might charge the customer 3%, but they might charge you 6% because they're going to give their customer a bonus at the end of the year. If you guys have some of those really fun cards that give you perks, all of the people that you're buying products from are paying for your perks. Visa isn't giving that out of their pocket. No, they're telling the vendor, like, hey, if you want to accept this, this is your fee. So I've seen it. I've had to pay it before. So I would say at least half of this $250,000 revenue, you're going to want to account for at least 2.5% for vendor cards. You're going to want to shop vendors and they're going to be linked to your software and reservation app. But it's definitely a real fee. And I added in, I mean, it's a lot of money when you get, that's $5,000. That's a big chunk of change to, cough up when you get your Visa 1099 at the end of the year. Legal and accounting, I'm just going to plug 2,500 bucks in here. I'm going to have a CPA doing my books. With QuickBooks, I'm going to have them, filing the taxes on this park. Taxes are going to cost more than 2,500 at the end of the year, but I might be able to find a bookkeeper, for 100 bucks a month. So we're going to play with that. We are not going to do supplies or materials yet. Remember, we don't have a store. There's no, Snickers bars for vending machines. There's no, toilet paper. There's no hospitality here. I don't have to pay for any of that. And I don't have office supplies. There's no office at this park. I am going to want to put in reserves. Let's see. Probably going to put in 3% reserves. 3% is a good number all across the board, right? Just in case something breaks. 502,000 roughly in revenue a year. So 15,000, it's just about what the asset management fee is. So once again, it's a little bold, but I don't know the year of the park. I don't know what the underground structure looks like. All questions I'll ask, but once again, just a quick analysis. What does this park look like? I'm going to leave the utilities the way that they are for now, because they are chunked together, but I don't think that those are far off. I will confirm, is this everything? Is this trash, water, blah, blah, blah? What sort of utilities are it on? Okay, let me see. But that changes it, right? Look, it took my expense ratio up another almost 14%. We were at 31.6%, right? Now we're up to 45.6. This is a more normalized range for where parks are going to be operating in, that 40 to 60%. Somebody sent me a park yesterday that had like 100% expense ratio. I've never seen anything like that. So I'm sure that there's a story behind there. But I've never seen anything like that. I've seen some parks pretty high, 70, 80%. It's either mismanagement or rents are way too low. But between 40 and 60, if you're seeing that, that's a good place to be. So now we're losing it even more money, right? Now that I've put in all the expenses that I'm going to implement on the park to run it the way that I want to run it. Now we start going back to playing with, okay, what sort of purchase price works well for me? That's reasonable, right? I mean, I could drop it down as low as I want to, but I want to be reasonable. So I'm going to look at what the NOI is on this park, 273. If we were to just do a quick 10 cap, NOI, net operating income divided by purchase price. So 10 cap is easy math, 2.7. I do not think that this park is worth $4 million. So I'm going to go up there and bring the price down probably to 3 million first to see what it looks like if we take a cool 25% off of it. and then come back down here. Remember, my debt service is like 345,000 based on where it's at now. It's going to change a little bit because I'm changing the bank loan and the seller carry to reflect the new purchase price. Um, and then see if I can get myself making some money on this park and see if I can do it with terms that may be, accepted by the seller and maybe not. So we know if we're doing a 65% loan off of 3 million, that's easy. We got a $2 million bank loan. Yep. And we got a $1 million seller carry. Let's see how that changed it. Okay. Well, it still sucks, but right off the bat, you start cash flowing if you offer them $1 million less. You'll see this is why you're saying no to way more parks than you're saying yes to. It's going to be really difficult to get a seller to take $1 million haircut, let alone probably 1.2 or 3, which is probably where this needs to be. Maybe even more than that, depending on what we talk with the agent about on our 1 o'clock call today. We'll come back. I'll actually do like this underwriting Zoom in a 2-part series after we talk with the agent today. I'll come back and make some changes to this based on what they've told me, and then we'll see, what we would really underwrite it at, because that's the back and forth, right? You kind of do a napkin analysis on a park. I know that this has been like 90 minutes so far, but you can typically do this in, under an hour. You can get the financials. You're going to want to, I typically do this before, I talk to the agent. I'm going to go in, kind of look at the park, run some quick numbers on it, see, okay, do I like this? Do I even want to talk to the agent further? I don't want people sending me their financials if it doesn't make sense. You could beeline that way. I want to look at the park. I don't want to spend my time talking to an agent, building rapport. And that's just me personally. I have a lot of stuff to do in a day. And for me, interactions, take a lot out of me. We'll go over it today on the call, but there's a lot behind the psychology of talking with agents, smiling, even over a phone call. If it's not on Zoom, people can that conveys on a phone call. So there's a lot to the phone calls that I do. And I just don't have time for it if I don't like the park. So I do my quick underwriting. I call it kind of like a napkin. Then I'll talk to the agent. I'll get some of the questions that come up in my napkin analysis, like, okay, I don't have this. I need this broken out. I need to know about these. And then I go back and I finish my underwriting, and I'm like, it's either a bust because of everything that I found out, or it's actually something I can send an LOI on. And then I, call the agent one more time, tell them I'm looking at maybe sending an LOI, and I'll do that and follow up with them. So I'm just going to bring it down to 2.7 real quick, just to play with it, just on a 10 cap. That's just kind of how my mind works for the most part. My brain works on, a 10 cap. Of course, I could buy at different amounts, but that's typically where I go. Okay. So 65% of a 2.7 loan is 1.755. Sorry about the dogs. Okay, with a 945,000 seller carryback. And here's where you can start adjusting, the interest rate, the amortization schedule. Maybe you tell the seller, hey, if I'm giving you 1.755 down, I don't want to pay you anything for the first 2 years. I want there to be a holiday. That's an easy conversation to have. If the seller doesn't have any underlying debt on the property or very little, they're getting a fat check. Like, somebody else's finances aren't my problem per se. But if I know that they're walking away from, the closing table with a fat check, Yeah, I'm definitely going to say, hey, I don't want to pay you for a couple years. I know you're not hurting. I know you don't need this money to pay your electric monthly. I want 2 years of breathing room. And I'll do that. I'll negotiate 1 year, 18 months, 2, 3 years. I've sent LOIs where I'm like, oh, you want this money down? Well, you can have this down payment. It is a park that I'm still in negotiations on. He wanted 20% down on a park that's performing poorly, but it's priced well enough. And I've negotiated really aggressive terms that we're still kind of going back and forth on because I'm not his favorite offer, but I'm one of his only offers. And I was like, okay, you want 20% down? I'm not paying you anything for 5 years. Like, if that's what you want down, I'll pay you when I get ready to refinance this park after I've taken 5 years to stabilize it. Do I think it'll take me 5 years? No. I think it will probably take me 24 months. Do I want that flexibility because I can't see the future? Absolutely. I want that 5 years. So he might get paid at year two and he's like, hey, this deal ended up better than I expected, but I'm always going to underwrite on the conservative and I'm always going to be more aggressive on my offering because they're going to come back and negotiate you, hopefully to at least a middle ground where both parties don't feel like they got what they wanted. And that's always a good deal. Because if one party feels like they got a great deal, the other one didn't. Um, and so you can absolutely kind of like change. You're going to want to change the cell structure the same in Excel to, defer, um, the first 2 years of payment so that that reflects. And maybe we'll do that real quick. And then because it has been a 90-minute Zoom, I'll stop this. And then, like I said, we'll follow up. I'll do a second part to this tonight after our call this afternoon. So now we have the purchase price at 2.7. I did forget to change this the first time. There we go. We got seller care of 945,000. We got a bank loan at 1.755 at 10%. We're gonna go all the way down here now that everything else in the middle is set. So you can just glaze over that for now. Okay, this is not bad. Now we're making $3,300 a month. Now we're making, about 10%, a little bit more of the NOI each month, which is fair. We're going to have to do something really aggressive though, because year one, $10 a month isn't cutting it. And so that's where that seller carryback comes in, because by year three, you're making good money. So let's go do that, because this is today. Remember, this is as it sits at purchase, but we need year one, months 1 through 12 to reflect that too. So we're going to go up here and we're just going to see real quick what it looks like if we can get a 2-year hiatus on the seller carry. And I'm just, what cell am I going to steal from? We'll see, 26. Oh, good. Okay. This cell you could zero out and it doesn't seem to affect anything further down. That's lovely. Okay. So year 1 and 2, no seller payments. Year 3, 4, and 5, they pick back up. Let's make sure that it all conveyed properly. There we go. Okay. If we do that, if we can negotiate a 2.7 purchase price with that bank financing structure, which is 65% down, 35% seller carry. And I actually just realized there's one really vital part that we're going to have to go through real quick because I don't want to not catch that. Actually, maybe I'll save that for the second part just so that I can have a break after the 90 minutes, but I'll show you what it's going to be. So, okay. So now you're making $3,500 a month, which is great. I think I would like to, make $3,500 on 10 parks. Now, yeah, there are some parks that make $10,000 a month. In general, it's going to take a few parks to get to that $10,000 or $20,000 a month, just based on standard underwriting and feasibility, right? Parks that are making $10,000 free cash flow a month, they're more expensive. It's a little bit more difficult to take down something of that size for your first park. So, trying to look at scaling, right? It's not a home run first park. It's always, how many parks does it take to get to my goals and what does it look like? So, okay. So I'm going to pause, make this a two-part, but one of the most important things that I hadn't added in the beginning that we're going to add on the next Zoom that I put in this file together is these right here. Down payment, CapEx, initial reserves, you want a war chest, acquisition costs. We'll go over that. You have to be paid for your time. It's very real that you may not get paid from the park for the first year. You can't foresee what's coming up. You need to be paid up front for the work that you're going to do and the work that you've done until this point, right? You're doing all your work now. You're doing your underwriting, your due diligence. You're going to have to go out to the park, work the park. You have to get the operator. You have to get the manager. You have to get a lot of stuff set up, even if you have the operator and the manager helping you, and you need to be compensated for your time. Otherwise, you're just making a job for yourself, but it's still a job, but you're not getting paid. So it doesn't make sense. And then closing costs, you are closing this park at an attorney's office or a title company. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You are doing it. I'm not going to allow you to do it any other way. So there's going to be closing costs, title policies, attorney fee, doc prep. If you're doing it with a loan, there's appraisals. There, maybe is inspections that you're doing during your due diligence. So we're going to fill that out. And that will also factor in to the net cash flow. So thanks you guys for hanging in there with me for 90 minutes, and I'll see you guys shortly. I will come back.